Elijah Martin, Amari Williams, Pedulla, Felix Okpara, and others were all commits from the top 150 players in the transfer portal. Now they're going to be on an SEC team next season.
We've got 3 days left until the transfer portal closes. We're breaking down the players that are coming in, looking at who's still out there in the portal, and looking at the work that is still left to do.
Plus, Arkansas and Alabama had a big week on the recruiting trail, picking up freshmen in the top 35 in the country. We're talking about it all today on the Hoops Southbound Show. Everybody, and welcome into the show. We got a great show today. We're going to be talking a lot about the transfer portal, like we mentioned, and let's just go ahead and get right into it, kind of keep a compact show today. Here's a look at the top 10 best available players as it stands on On3. Currently, number 1 best available is Janelle Davis out of Florida Atlantic, Clifford Amari out of Rutgers, Jonas Adu out of Tennessee, Great Osabor out of Utah State, Vlad Golden out of FAU, Chaz Laner out of North Florida, Brandon Garrison out of Oklahoma State, Jalen Wells out of Washington State, Javon Small out of Oklahoma State, and Aiden Mahaney wraps up the top 10 out of St. Mary's. A lot of names in there. We've already heard some cadets in there, but that's our look at the top 10. And there's a lot of excitement around a lot of these players.
Yeah, for sure. Let's dive into it. I mean, you got John L. Davis. One of the biggest names in the top 10 is definitely getting a lot of attention. He was a key piece for Dusty May and the success Florida Atlantic had the past year before. And, leaders here are reported to be Arkansas and Kentucky. So 2 SEC schools that are kind of in the front of the running.
Yeah, great guard for any team that adds him. Gets points, distributes the ball, rebounds positionally well, which is something I'm noticing about the guys that Cal is kind of going after in the portal. He's contacted a lot of guys who are positionally good rebounders. Not the best rebounders, but guys 1 through 3 who rebound well and can contribute on the glass out of the backcourt and wing positions. But the offense is also incredibly attractive for Davis. I would expect him to be a hog, but my understanding this thing is going to come down to NIL. So whoever wants to make that bid probably gets the guy, and they're getting a great player if they do so. So I don't know what the best price is. I don't know what it is, but that seems to be a bidding war right now between Kentucky and Arkansas.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of players with big pockets in Arkansas make some promises. So we'll see what they're willing to actually do, especially when it comes down to players like this. We definitely need to see more movement out of the transfer portal from Cal and the Hogs. So this would be a great get, like you said, if they have the money to do so.
Yeah, and we'll find out exactly where that stands. I know that there's scheduled visits coming up for Arkansas and everything else, but another big name that's getting talked about a lot here in this top 10 is Jonas Adu. We know his game in this conference, great big out of Tennessee, quality numbers. The leaders here being reported are Alabama, Arkansas, Baylor, and North Carolina. If you asked me a week ago, I would have picked Baylor to land him. However, he has taken a visit to Arkansas this weekend, and both Arkansas and Alabama are in pursuit of a quality 5. Arkansas has also taken a visit from Brandon Garrison from Oklahoma State today. So we'll see how things shape out for the Hogs.
Yeah, for sure. This would be another great get for Cal. You take a look at the leadership that Adu had with Tennessee last year. Comfortable with this game. A lot of people know what they're getting with him. And I think he'd be a good player to get on in a leadership position because there are so many freshmen coming in. So something that they definitely did look into and lean into as Arkansas as they continue to pursue players.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're talking about a guy who was a significant piece out of Tennessee's front court, has played high level competition, winning basketball, got to coming off an Elite 8 run with Rick Barnes' team last year. It's a great piece for any team that wants to add somebody who's got a winning mentality.
For sure. And then another one of those bigs taking a visit to Alabama is out of Rutgers, Clifford Omori. Leaders reported here are Alabama, Georgetown, Kansas State, and there are a couple others in the running too.
Yeah, it's hard to tell where he's going to go, but Amari taking a visit to Alabama is telling and optimistic for the Tide. They really need to add a good big man to shape out this roster. Additionally, Amari plays good defense, which was something the Tide was lacking last season. So it'd be a really great add if Alabama was able to add him.
Yeah, for sure. So speaking of some of those ads, let's go team by team, kind of break down what we've seen so far and what we may see in the weeks to come.
Yeah.
So looking at Alabama, Latrell Wrightsell said he is going to come back to Alabama, but not much movement when you look at the transfer portal.
Yeah, Tider sitting with one roster spot open with plenty of time to find one right guy. And who knows what we'll see out of Amori here in the next 24 hours since he's taken that visit. I would like them to add a player with strong defense and possibly a dominant big. And I think Amori adds both those categories. So I think he'd be a really good fit. We'll see if that's the movement that happens today or tomorrow.
Yeah, for sure. And another school we've already talked a lot about, Arkansas, still waiting on another transfer as well. But they did a lot in adding freshmen this week, which we'll get to in a little bit.
Yeah, Arkansas filled a couple of roster spots, and we'll get to those freshmen, like you said. But Hog's sitting right now with 9 more spots to fill. So there's got to be some activity here coming pretty quick. You're not going to have too many more names add their name to the portal in the next couple of days.
For sure. Moving on to Auburn, it was a quiet week for them.
Yeah, Auburn doesn't have to be in a rush. Just like Alabama, they got 3 spots open, and what they're really doing is adding depth. They've got a couple of guys that you already identified as possibly your leaders for next season. So Auburn's just looking at adding 1 or 2, 3 pieces that are really just going to boost the bench and maybe an additional starter. So we'll see what Auburn puts together. They're not in a dire situation, even with the 3 open roster spots.
Yeah, you got to expect with Janai Broom staying around. A lot of probably convinced a lot of other players to stick around also, and can probably convince a decent name to come there and add some depth to that roster.
Also, plenty of senior leadership.
Yeah, for sure. But moving on, Florida made a big move this week. David, you were saying you thought it was either going to be Florida or Ole Miss, and Elijah Martin became a Gator.
Yeah, I said it was either going to be, I felt like it was going Gators' way last week. And yeah, that's the way it turned out. Martin's Florida's 3rd grab of the cycle and maybe their best so far. Martin's a solid guard out of Florida Atlantic. He adds some more perimeter offense and defense for the Gators next season. Great on ball defender, but could use some improvement navigating screens. He's an excellent deep threat. Martin shot roughly 37% for his career from 3. Depending on if you get Clayton or Richard back from the NBA, adding Martin to your backcourt can be very good for the Gators. Regardless, this is a good ad for Florida, and I like it quite a bit. Gators sitting with 2 more spots left to fill on this roster.
Next up with Georgia. Georgia this week added Justin Absent out of Appalachian State and Dakota LaFew out of Mount St. Mary's.
Quality score out of a few and a balanced forward out of Absent. Georgia still has 5 more spots to fill, so they got some work to do.
All right, and moving on to another school we've heard quite a bit about throughout the week. Kentucky has had a solid week putting together a roster. 2 players out of the top 150 in the portal. Guard Lamont Butler out of San Diego State, not in the top 50, but forward Amari Williams out of Drexel and guard Otega Awe out of Oklahoma were huge ads for Big Blue.
Fantastic defensive ad for Mark Pope. Amari Williams is a great defender, 3-time defensive player of the year out of Drexel. As a senior, he averaged 12.2 points, 7.8 rebounds, 1.9 assists, and 1.8 blocks per game. And he did that in about 23 minutes of action. Williams started all 32 games for Drexel last season. On offense, he's dangerous around the rim. For his size, he fits well into the Pope offensive system where you see the 1 through 5 shooting the 3 at will. Williams shot 30% for his career from 3. That said, he's not much to shoot it. It's a lower volume. He's had under 30 attempts so far in college. I'd expect that number to rise a little bit on the average per year under Pope. Where Williams really excels, though, is on the glass. He's a solid rebounder, and he's an excellent rim protector. It's something I like. I like the ad. I'll be interested to follow the offensive development for him. Like, this isn't an exact fit for the Mark Pope system, but it's a very encouraging and high potential fit. And then you follow it up like with Otega White out of the top 150. I think he fits the Pope offensive system better than Amari Williams does. At one point, this kid was thought to be an NBA draft prospect last season. He didn't have the hottest finish in the world, but Oklahoma as a whole didn't either. But he can get really hot from three. He shot 37% from deep. That's exactly what Pope wants on offense. He's also gets to the free throw line. He's physical. He's intense. Then there's tons of defensive upside as well. I actually like this ad better than the Williams ad, even though away is ranked lower on three. And then Kentucky, of course, has 8 roster spots left to fill. They've got a lot of work to do, just like Arkansas.
For sure. Someone else with a little bit of work to do is LSU. We heard nothing out of them this week.
Yeah, and as far as their work to goes, they only got 1 roster spot to fill. They've done a lot of the things they need to do and retained what they needed to do. No rush needed. Got to find the right guy.
Yeah, for sure. And Ole Miss had a great ad with guard Sean Pedulla out of Virginia Tech.
I like Sean Pedulla. I like this ad by Chris Beer. Pedulla played a lot of minutes for Virginia Tech. Last season, Pedulla started off kind of slow, but got progressively better as the season went on. At Virginia Tech this past season, Pedulla averaged 16.4 points, 4.6 assists, 4.3 rebounds per game. He shot 42.4% from the floor and 32.5% from three and 80.1% from the free throw line. He shoots the ball, he moves the ball, and he rebounds the ball well for his position. It's a good ad by Ole Miss, helps out the backcourt situation. Ole Miss lost Flanagan, Nunez, and Murray in the backcourt. This adds depth and could be a potential upgrade for that backcourt. Ole Miss, only 1 more spot left to fill on this roster. Very good class so far.
David, do we want to talk about the text that you sent me about Sean Pedulla this week?
Do you want to talk about the text I sent you about Sean Pedulla this week?
I just love the comparison.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's the, everybody's talking to the super attractive girl at the party, that's having a really good time, but no one wants to talk to the girl in the corner who is the best one out there, the one that everyone should be talking to. That's the girl you want to take home. Sean Pedulla is kind of like that.
Material.
Do what?
So the hashtag wifey material.
Hashtag wifey material. Like, he's a good player. He's a really good player, and he does everything. Like, it's everything that you want, and it's a perfect fit. Like, any team that has a Sean Pedulla on them, a guy who can score, a guy who rebounds well for his position, a guy who distributes, that's a player you want, and he's done it at a high level. It's just not the most flashy name in the portal. So, everyone wants Jennifer Aniston, but they don't realize they got something great sitting at the party at home.
I like it, David. Moving on to Mississippi State, they added guard Claudell Harris Jr. out of Boston College.
Yeah, at some point, I'd like to see Jans make a big move in the portal to help Hubbard out next season. State lost a lot of talent this year, and they've got 3 more roster spots to fill. So I'd really like to see just a little bit more help for Josh Hubbard, coming in the next season.
Yeah, moving on to Missouri. Not any movement that we've seen there, but they've already got a solid transfer class being put together.
Like we talked about this last week, Missouri is pretty much set. They've only got 1 more roster spot to fill, and they've added a lot of big names in this transfer class. Missouri looks like a very promising team so far.
For sure. Finally, we got some movement out of Oklahoma. Seems to be going in the right direction. The Sooners have added Kobe Elvis.
Team that lost a lot of scoring from last year and still has a lot of work to do. Sooners have 5 more roster spots left to fill this transfer cycle.
Well, David, you talked a lot about Jordan Butler last week, and he did, in fact, stay in the SEC. South Carolina added Jordan Butler out of Missouri and another SEC big man out of Nick Pringle coming in from Alabama.
Yeah, Nick Pringle's going back home. Both these are decent ads from Lamont Paris, and they come with SEC experience. Carolina with 1 more spot left to fill on this roster. It looks like, they may not be the biggest upgrade we've ever seen, but this seems to be putting together well for Lamont Paris.
For sure. Moving on to Tennessee, huge move from them in the top 150 transfers, picking up center Felix Okpara out of Ohio State.
Not anything that's going to jump off the page to you in that stat sheet, except maybe the field goal percentage, but analytics like this kid, and he's a quality defender. I feel like where he's at right now gives you back what you lost in Tobe Awaka. Okpara is a good shot blocker, can get up and down, and he can dunk the basketball. He's an effective rebounder. He's a kid who can go for double-double on points and rebounds maybe 3 or 4 times a year. If he develops more, those numbers could start approaching Adu territory for what you lost there. So this is a very good front court ad for Rick Barnes. And right now, Vol's sitting with 4 more spots left to fill on that roster.
Yes, they do. And then looking at Texas, got a pretty big get out of Oregon State guard Jordan Pope. David, you liked this ad a lot.
I do. This is a big Lone Star State battle win for Texas over Texas A&M in the transfer portal. Both teams were going after this kid, and Rodney Terry comes out the victor. Pope is coming off a great freshman campaign for Oregon State. Starting 32 out of 33 games and averaging 12.6 points per game and making 63 pointers, earning Pac-12 all-freshman team. He's also a good passer and one of the best point guards available in the transfer portal this cycle. This is a great ad. What Texas is putting together in their backcourt is exciting. Horns have Tremont Mark at 16.2 points per game, 36.4% three-point percentage. Jordan Pope, 17.6 points per game, 37.1% field or three-point percentage. Julian Larry, 11 points per game, 52.5% field goal percentage, and 46.2% three-point percentage. And then you have 5-star shooting guard Trey Johnson coming in. We talked this March about the makings of a national champion. I'm not saying Texas is there, but one of those qualities was shooting 36% or better from 3. Texas has 4 players now in their backcourt that are capable of that. That's a huge plus. Texas was a team that lost 79% of its scoring this offseason and lost guys like Abmas, Horton, Cunningham, and Dizu to graduation and eligibility. That's 44 points a night from graduation. Texas added 45, and say Johnson gives you 7 a night. That's 52. Lot of potential here, and we don't know how great Trey Johnson is going to be. I mean, he's a top 15 player in this freshman class. He's an excellent shooting guard. So that 7 points could be conservative. So we'll see what we can get. Texas, a lot of scoring potential out of this backcourt being put together.
Yeah, for sure. And they still have 3 spots left to fill. So you think you get a little bit more production off of the bench, maybe with those 3 spots or even a starting spot. Like you said, it's got the makings of a possible champion there.
A depth piece here, a front court piece here. Who knows what Texas can put together for next season?
For sure. Well, moving on, the Aggies may have lost the battle for Pope, but they added guard CJ Wilcher out of Nebraska and forward Pharrell Payne out of Minnesota.
Payne's a really good forward that Texas A&M added. He's played big-time basketball in the Big Ten while at Minnesota. He's another big guy who can go get a double-double in rebounds and points any night. He can really add a lot to help the Henry Coleman. He can help Henry Coleman next season. Aggies were already a good offensive rebounding team. This can make them a better rebounding defense or offensive rebounding team. Also adds some rim protection. He's not the most massive upgrade, but remember, he is young and still developing, and players tend to stick around with Buzz. So you can be a guy who contributes now and become a big-time piece in the future. So I like this ad for Buzz.
Yeah, for sure. Some fantastic ads with Texas A&M. Hopefully it's not an overhyped situation, kind of like we had last year, and we see them get a little bit better this season, especially with some of those additions.
Well, I think this is what you wanted to add with Wildens last season. So
Yeah.
like this is what you wanted, and I think this is another attempt to get Henry Coleman some help.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely their front court was a little lackluster, so hopefully boosting that up can help them get maybe on a track closer to where they were thinking they were going to be last season.
Exactly, the extra contribution. Yeah.
For sure. Aggies also losing Bryce Lindsey this week, so Texas A&M has 1 open spot left to fill. And then we had a really active week for Vanderbilt. They added 3 more names to next year's roster. Forward Devin McLaughlin out of Boston College, guard Chris Mannon out of Cornell, and guard Jason Edwards out of North Texas.
Edwards is a really good ad by Vandy. You're getting a guy who played in one of the better conferences outside the Power 6 and came from a good team. North Texas wasn't a joke last year. Go ask LSU about him. He was an All-American. He was an All-American Conference Player of the Year last season, and he can shoot it from deep. He had a season high of 37 points against Tulane last season. He also fits the Byington style well. Edwards can get up and out in transition. He can get 15% of his buckets came in transition last season. He's also an experienced guy who's played some years in college ball. It's a great ad and probably the best ad Vandy's had so far this cycle. And so far, it's Vandy's only ad in the top 150 transfers in the portal. So, which is this is a big highlight for for Vandy this cycle. Vandy's sitting right now with just 2 more spots left to fill this transfer cycle.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about the transfers. We talked about the teams or the work that teams have left to do. One of those teams is the Hawk, but they are getting it done in adding a solid freshman class. Arkansas's made some moves on the freshman front, like we said earlier. Diving into that a little bit more, Coach Cal has brought in a couple of players from his recruiting class. So he was building over in Kentucky. Arkansas is grabbing small forward Carter Knox, small forward Billy Richmond, and combo guard Boogie Fland. Both players are 4 stars according to 24/7 and in the top 30 recruits in the country.
I'd congratulate John Calipari on grabbing these guys, but he kind of already did that once at Kentucky. Carter Knox is a great wing with a lot of talent. He is especially great on the offensive end of the ball, shoots the 3 well. Good inside the arc game to go along with it. Knox has a great build for his physicality, and he's shown flashes of being a good passer. The biggest concern is his defense. He can guard, but he can guard you with his size and his physicality, but doesn't have that lateral quickness that's so desired. That's something that he needs to develop. Then Boogie Flam, another great shooter coming to this Arkansas team. Kid can shoot, and he can get red hot. I'd like to see him improve his consistency, but he can make plays also, and he's someone looking to make a big highlight defensively on the steal and in transition. He's exciting. And then right before the weekend, Arkansas wasn't done. That's when they added Billy Richmond to the lineup in Fayetteville. Big athletic wing. Don't let the picture on YouTube fool you. He can really play either the 2 or the 3 spot. He's very strong and uses a lot of that physicality to play defense. But unlike Flandon Knox, Richmond isn't consistent from 3. He isn't a consistent threat from deep. Instead, he's really a strong driver, and he's got a drive first style mentality. He wants to get to the paint. He wants to make athletic plays. He's also a highlight reel waiting to happen in transition. He's also starting to create for others, which is a really good thing, but he can be a little turnover prone as well. Really like this kid. Gives Arkansas some versatility in their offensive play style, and he's a quality defender that Arkansas is adding. So I'm encouraged by what I'm reading and watching on tape out of Billy Richmond.
Yeah, for sure. Billy Richmond was a name I wasn't super aware of until we kind of started diving more into the transfer portal. And if we're doing comparisons, reminds me a lot of from what I've seen of Anthony Black. Not as great on the ball handling side, but his ability to drive in, to be able to push out, create some space for others. A lot of opportunity there with this kid. And I think Coach Cal getting into the development side can really do something with him this year.
I think he might be something that we see some flashes of remembering Ricky Council out of. I know Ricky Council was the shooting guard, but like this kid can play the shooting guard position, or he can be moved to the 3 spot. So either way that you move him, someone who's not a great 3-point shooter, but someone who can dunk the crud out of the basketball. Someone who can make a big time play. That's something that, Billy Richmond can do. He's super athletic, just like Ricky Council was. So like this is Ricky Council in a younger one and done form, so to speak. But yeah, he's an exceptional talent. And then I'm really excited because of the versatility that Boogie Flan can give you in your backcourt with him being a combo guard. You can either use him at the 2 or you can switch him over, put him at the 1. He could be your backup point guard and your starting shot guard. He could be your starting point guard or something like that. There's a lot of talent here. I like the looks of this freshman class. Now, Maddie, we talked about it before. I would like now to add some experience to this team. Like, let's get some guys with some years and experience because, we know one of the things that people talk about, and when we talk about, Vegas talks about it and I talk about it, things that make national champions and Final Four teams, experienced players matter. And the best teams to win those types of games are, two of your top three scorers are typically upperclassmen. That's what Arkansas really needs to find at this point. I think a big would be a good ad for Arkansas in the transfer portal to supplement this very young team that it's got so far, and then finding an experienced point guard. Like, those have to be priorities 1 and 2. And look who's Cal's talking to. He's talking to Janelle Davis right now, and he's talking to Jonas Adu. These are things I like. So like, if you can find those guys and they can be your 2 or 3, 1 or 3, 2, or 1 and 2, whatever top scorers, like, that would be an excellent contribution to this team, and you give you enough experience to start getting things, and then you add more depth experience to the team overall. So when you have to take one of these guys out, you put somebody experienced in, and that's kind of the goal, is like, you back up talent with experience and you put together a good team. Love the core talent wise. I want some experienced players now, and I think that would be really good for Arkansas.
Yeah, for sure. I'd replied to a tweet this weekend talking about, what great things was happening on the freshman front. So no, these freshmen are kind of making me nervous. Got hit with a little backlash after that, a couple let him cook memes, but I get it. I get it. Obviously there's more work to be done and he's done great things, but
I'm not knocking what they're doing around the recruitment.
yeah.
This is good.
Yeah.
There's things I want to see that have been proven statistically give you a better chance to win. So like,
yeah, I just, with last season, as much as we talked about, Cal's system and how he works things, he likes those freshmen one and done, which it's been proven that they don't get you too far in March. So we need a few, really solid pieces in there that give us some experience and a little bit of leadership, hopefully, on these teams to help these freshmen kind of figure out the ways of college basketball.
Well, it's interesting you pointed that out, because like, I'm flashing back in my mind. We had a comment on the YouTube channel not too long ago talking about like how it was a bad take that we were talking about, like, Eric Musselman got one and done. John Calipari, like, what's the difference? Like, that's a bad take for that. But look at who the leaders were on those teams for Arkansas, and some of the guys who are making massive contributions on those Razorback teams. When Arkansas had that Sweet 16 run with Anthony Black, Nick Smith Jr., and Jordan Walsh, the guys on that team who, like, if I remember right, Ricky Council led in scoring for most of the season. It wasn't Anthony Black. It wasn't Jordan Walsh, and Nick Smith Jr. was hurt. And then, like, you had some other contributors on that team who had excellent games, like Mekhi Mitchell, out of the front court. And you had those types of experienced players on that Razorback team that added to that experience and the depth and everything else that Arkansas needed. That was a young Razorback team, but like, overall, it was very talented, but the leaders on that team are still guys like Ricky Council. And then you go even further back, like you go to the 2002 team. That was a very experienced team that went to an Elite Eight and overperformed their seed. And then you go back to the 2021 class. Sure, you had Moses Moody and Debo Davis and all these young guys and KK Robinson, but like Justin Smith, big part of that team. Jalen Tate, big part of that team. So that's the next ad, is like, yes, you want these 5-star guys. You want these great, talented players that can make big contributions on your team. You also want talented, experienced guys, like, who can really know how to win and know how to play college basketball at this level. Because don't forget, I know these freshmen are super talented, but they still got to take a step up in competition. These guys over here, they want to get to the NBA too. They may be second round draft picks and undrafted players, but they're top class talent as well. These are the guys with elite level potential that are coming in. So that's what you really want to add, as a combination of that. And Calipari even said it in his opening press conference. We heard him talk about, we want that mix.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, even if you look at Kentucky from this last season, didn't get as far in March as they wanted to, but could you imagine if they were in the place that they would have been a year ago from today, when they didn't know they were going to get Antonio Reeves back? The stuff at West Virginia hadn't gone down and he hadn't gotten Trey Mitchell. There's no way they would have been sitting near the top of the SEC without those two major leaders and experienced players on that team.
What do we talk about during March Madness? Go look at the box sheet from that Oakland game. Who underperformed and who had a great basketball game for Kentucky? Because the leaders for Kentucky for Oakland were Antonio Reeves and Trey Mitchell. They were playing at a high level. Reed Shepherd didn't have a good game. Rob Dillingham didn't have that good of a game. DJ Wagner didn't have a good game. Justin Edwards didn't have a lot of those guys, even the guys who got 10 points, they were an ugly 10 points. Like, like that freshman core didn't make the contribution that you would hope the talent would make. I'm not saying it's a for sure first round exit anytime you set a team up like that, but you want that combination. You want guys who have been there before, and you want guys who know how to win. So I'm interested to see what Calipari adds at this point.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of additions, we did have one that's looking like it's not going to be going Arkansas's way. Quentin's is apparently out on Arkansas. It looks like Louisville is going to be the leader there now.
Yep, absolutely.
Worth mentioning that with all the movement into Arkansas, the Hogs have taken a massive jump into the top 3 of the SEC freshman class ranks. Missouri, Arkansas, and Alabama are all top 10 nationally. Alabama jumped to the number 2 recruiting class in the country behind Duke with the addition of LeBron Fillin, a point guard in the top 35, according to 24/7.
Yeah, I think it's pronounced LeBaron. I'm not trying to correct you because I had to look at it a couple of times.
My bad.
No, I think you're. I'm not for sure, but I think it's LeBaron. Very quick lead guard out of Link Academy. Fits the Alabama mold. Very good outside the shooting guard. I'm going to go back to what I just said there with pronunciation right now at this point in the season. I will learn to pronounce everyone's name when we get about August. I should have everybody down. Like, it's just what it is with new names coming in. But yeah, back to what I was saying about Philin. Very quick lead guard out of Link Academy. Fits the Alabama mold very well with his outside shooting. He does some work physical. He does have some work to do physically with his frame, but there are some encouraging signs on defense, which is something Alabama needed. I wouldn't say what Alabama is putting together is defensively sound, but it's certainly offensively impressive. So we'll see how the rest of this team shapes out. But I really need to see some development overall from some of these Alabama players this offseason when it comes to their defense, because yes, the offense was great and worked out time and time again during March Madness, but it can also go sideways too. So we'll see what happens. Alabama looking very young next season, but they're adding some really good pieces so far out of the transfer portal.
For sure. A lot of great freshmen coming in. And if you want to know more about the freshmen coming into the SEC, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel and check out our upcoming Slam Dunk Summer Series, Freshman 15, only on YouTube. And that series will premiere in August.
Yeah, and just to be sure to clear myself here, I know that Philan's not a transfer. He's a freshman. I'm talking 4 different directions. Like, I hope everyone got my point. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Tried keeping things somewhat compact this week. NBA playoffs are still going on, and next week we'll be talking about the SEC players who are moving on to the second round and how they're doing in the playoffs. Plus, next week we're going to recap the portal after it closes and see where everybody still stands. We'll still keep an eye on the late commits after it closes. So please like and subscribe. Follow us anywhere that you get your podcasts, and we'll check you guys out next week.
Thanks, guys. Have a great week.